The rain-soaked streets of New York stretched endlessly outside Vale Mercy Hospital, their lights reflecting off the VIP room windows like shattered water. In the sterile silence, a whisper cut through the air like a prayer. "You need a home. I need a mother for her." Adrian stood there, CEO suit drenched from the storm exhaustion carved into his distinguished features. With trembling hands, he placed a trinity ring on the cold metal table, three interlocking bands that caught the hallway light like captured promises. Mira froze mid-motion. The night shift nurse had just finished bandaging 6-year-old Ivy's wounded hand. The little girl with curly hair and unusually calm, intelligent eyes that seemed to understand far more than any child should. The ring rolled slightly, coming to rest beside the music box Mira always carried. An old wooden box weathered and cracked, with a gap in its lid like something precious was missing. The air itself seemed to crystallize. Heart monitors beeped steadily. Rain drummed against windows. Fluorescent lights hummed their endless song. Ivy watched both adults with those knowing eyes, as if she were choosing something neither of them understood yet. The moment held its breath, waiting for someone to break the spell. Mira had been alone since she was 12. The memory was always the same, standing in a government office clutching nothing but an address scribbled on paper and her mother's music box. The only things left behind when everything else disappeared into bureaucratic files and foster care systems. Her dreams had been deferred so many times they felt like echoes. The nursing scholarship, delayed again and again as student loan debt mounted. Her foster mother's heart condition requiring treatments that insurance barely covered. Every paycheck stretched thin between hope and survival. Going home after work is just like being at the hospital, she often told herself, quiet and smelling like medicine. She worked night shifts deliberately. Fewer people to navigate around, fewer questions about why she never talked about family gatherings or weekend plans. The solitude was armor she'd learned to wear perfectly. Her locker held one secret, a letter that arrived exactly 1 year ago with no return address. When you hear that song, you'll know where you belong. No signature, no explanation. Adrian carried different burdens. The young CEO of Vale Group looked like he'd stepped from a magazine, but his eyes held the weight of a man who'd learned too much about loss too early. His wife's death 3 years ago in a car accident had left him raising Ivy alone, a brilliant, sensitive child who rarely spoke, but seemed to absorb every emotion around her like a musical sponge. Vale Group faced constant media scrutiny over Motherline, their foundation supporting single mothers and orphan children. Critics called it a publicity stunt. Adrian called it penance. His private torment was simple. Ivy needed a real mother, not just another photo opportunity for magazine covers about successful single fathers. The Trinity ring had belonged to his wife, but Ivy had placed it in his hands that very evening, whispering with 6-year-old certainty, "Daddy, this is for her." Now both Mira and Adrian stood at the intersection of need and possibility. She needed a home where her foster mother could rest without worry about medical bills. He needed someone who would choose Ivy's well-being over the allure of wealth and power. Neither knew that fate had already been set in motion by the smallest hands in the room. Vale Mercy Hospital operated under unforgiving standards. The customer is always right had been elevated to an art form. 1 minute late meant a formal warning. One paperwork error meant docked pay. The message was crystal clear. Frontline staff like Mira were meant to be invisible, present but never heard, helpful but never opinionated. Adrian existed in a different universe entirely. As both a patient's guardian and the hospital's CEO, every camera in the building seemed to follow his movements. The manager had pulled Mira aside with explicit instructions. No personal questions, no accepting gifts, no prolonged eye contact. The risk escalated daily. Rumors circulated about reporters hunting for scandal. Any story involving a CEO seducing hospital staff would dominate headlines for weeks. Mira needed to complete a full quarter of shifts without incident to qualify for the salary increase that would cover her foster mother's treatments. One mistake with a VIP patient meant instant termination. The power dynamic created an impossible gulf between them. Adrian could purchase anything money could touch. Buildings, treatments, influence, silence. Mira possessed only her music box in the sanctuary of night shifts. Industry protocol was merciless. Any hint of unprofessional behavior between staff and wealthy patients resulted in immediate dismissal and blacklisting throughout the medical community. Yet none of these rules accounted for what happened when a lonely child decided to rewrite the script. Ivy had been watching Mira for weeks through crack-open doors, studying the way she hummed softly while checking IV lines, how she always had an extra blanket for shivering patients, the gentle precision with which she handled even the smallest medical procedures. The 6-year-old had already chosen her candidate. Now she just needed to orchestrate the introduction. That rainy night when Ivy accidentally slipped on the polished lobby floor, it wasn't chance that brought Mira running first, covering the child with her own jacket before anyone else could react. It was destiny disguised as coincidence. Everything changed when Mira's music box began to play. As she cleaned Ivy's scraped palm, Mira opened the small wooden box, a habit she'd developed to calm anxious children. The melody drifted through the room like a lullaby made of memory. Ivy's eyes widened instantly. The little girl reached out with her uninjured hand, touching the music box's lid with reverent fingers. "It's the house song," she whispered with absolute certainty. Adrian stepped into the room at that exact moment. His breath caught as he noticed something impossible. A small rubber ring Mira used to secure her stethoscope had fallen from an old chain around her neck. The ring perfectly matched a groove carved into her music box lid, an incomplete circle etched with fading letters, for the world tilted sideways. Mira stared at the ring, then at the groove, her mind racing. This can't be possible. Mother left me this box with missing pieces, and here's a ring carved for her. Adrian felt his own confusion mounting. That melody, it belonged to my wife. But why does this stranger have a music box that plays it? After Ivy fell asleep, the conversation neither of them expected began. Adrian placed the Trinity ring on the metal table between them. "You need a home. I need a mother for her." Mira's response came swift and measured. "I'm a nurse, sir. I have professional boundaries. And I'm not some accessory that comes with a price tag." But Adrian's eyes held no calculation or manipulation. Only the desperate plea of a father who'd watched his daughter withdraw from the world for 3 years. This wasn't about purchasing companionship. This was about recognizing something neither of them understood yet. "I'm not trying to buy you," he said quietly. "I'm asking if you consider saving her." The music box sat between them, still playing its haunting melody. Ivy slept peacefully nearby, one small hand still reaching toward the sound of home. Neither adult realized that the 6-year-old had orchestrated this entire encounter, that she'd been guiding them toward each other for weeks through carefully planned accidents and perfectly timed moments. The house song was calling its family together. Management intervention came swiftly and ruthlessly. Despite Mira's protests, she was reassigned exclusively to Adrian's VIP suite. The hospital's unspoken message was clear: keep the CEO happy regardless of staff comfort. A cascade of indirect demands followed, each one designed to test her compliance. Answer all media questions using only approved responses. If asked about the music box claim, it's hospital property. Under no circumstances should you keep that ring in your possession. Workplace whispers grew venomous. "Look at her climbing the corporate ladder on her back," colleagues muttered behind carefully positioned clipboards. Mira maintained her professional standards with steely determination. She refused gifts, kept conversations brief, and never avoided Ivy when the child sought her out for the comfort of familiar melodies. The pressure intensified daily. A young resident smirked openly. "What is it with night shift nurses thinking they're everyone's mother?" Mira's response came soft but sharp. "No, but when a child is frightened, someone has to extend their hand." Her foster mother's condition worsened, making the salary increase even more critical. Every day brought new medical bills and mounting anxiety about treatment costs. Adrian found himself caught between protecting Mira's reputation and his growing certainty that Ivy had never responded to anyone the way she responded to the gentle nurse with the mysterious music box. The child who had barely spoken since her mother's death now hummed constantly, the same melody that drifted from Mira's wooden box each evening. Photography crews began stalking the hospital corridors, hunting for any image that could support headlines about inappropriate relationships between staff and wealthy patients. Mira's manager grew increasingly nervous. One photograph of you two talking, one social media post, one hint of impropriety, and we'll have no choice but to terminate your employment immediately. The stakes had never been higher. Mira needed this job to save her foster mother's life. Adrian needed Mira to help his daughter find her voice again. Ivy needed them both to stop being afraid of what other people might think. The collision course was set, with a 6-year-old girl holding all the cards. The hospital lobby erupted into chaos the next morning. Cameras, reporters, shareholders, and staff crowded together for an emergency town hall about the Motherline Foundation. The air crackled with tension and barely contained accusations. Board member Kessler stepped forward like a prosecutor approaching the witness stand. "Who exactly do you think you are?" he sneered directly at Mira. "Bringing your cheap trinkets into our hospital to emotionally manipulate our CEO." The attack was swift and surgical, designed to humiliate her publicly while protecting the hospital from scandal. Management scrambled to apologize on her behalf, paperwork already prepared for disciplinary action. But Ivy had been watching from behind a curtain. The little girl saw everything. Mira's music box tumbling to the polished floor, its lid springing open to reveal the carved groove that spelled out "her" in incomplete letters. The missing piece of a puzzle that had been waiting years to be solved. Ivy understood what the adults had missed entirely. This wasn't about romance or money or corporate politics. This was about a song that had been split in half, waiting for the right people to make it whole again. The child stepped forward into the lights and cameras, her small voice cutting through the chaos. "That's my house song. She's the one who makes it complete." The lobby fell silent. Every eye turned toward Mira, who knelt slowly and picked up her fallen music box. The damage from the fall had revealed something hidden beneath the lining. A faded letter in elegant handwriting. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. Mira held her breath and made the choice that would change everything. Mira stepped up to the podium, cameras rolling live across multiple networks. Her voice carried the quiet strength of someone who had survived too much to be intimidated by boardroom bullies. "You can buy hospitals, buy rings, buy all the positive PR in the world, but decency, that's something nobody can purchase for you." The words hit like lightning. Without hesitation, she placed the Trinity ring against the groove in her music box lid. It fit perfectly. Half of a circle that had been waiting decades to be completed. The melody played in full for the first time, rich and complete and hauntingly beautiful. Ivy broke free from the crowd and ran straight into Mira's arms, sobbing with relief as cameras captured every moment. The house song had finally found its home. Adrian stepped forward, his own eyes wet with tears he'd held back for 3 years. "I'm sorry you were treated with such disrespect," he said publicly. "This ends now." The lobby erupted as the real story finally began to emerge. Applause began with the night shift staff, spreading like wildfire through younger shareholders and medical residents who understood what they'd just witnessed. Adrian took Mira's hand, issuing a public apology for allowing her to be subjected to such treatment. The head chef and pediatric department chief stepped forward in solidarity. "If anyone signs disciplinary papers against this nurse, we'll all submit our resignations immediately." Kessler's face purpled with rage. "I'm selling my shares. Let's see how this hospital survives without proper financial backing." Adrian's response came swift and certain. "I choose character over capital, and if necessary, I choose starting over." The crowd roared its approval. Social media exploded within hours. The hashtags "Shashik for her" and "Chashumer house song" went viral as nurses across the country shared their own stories of caring for patients against impossible odds. Hospital policies began changing immediately. Vale Group established the Night House Fund, providing free accommodation near hospitals for patients' families. The House Song Scholarship Program launched for nursing students facing financial hardship. Half the PR department was dissolved, their budgets redirected to community programs. The head chef started "No One Eats Alone" dinners for night shift workers. Pediatrics created Ivy's Corner, a music and reading space for children facing extended hospital stays. Mira continued working night shifts for several more weeks, refusing to accept any special treatment or rapid promotions. She simply stayed beside Ivy each evening, teaching the child to play melodies on the restored music box. The image that defined everything, the Trinity ring resting permanently in the music box groove, both pieces vibrating together each time the lid opened. Two halves of something beautiful, finally made whole. The deeper truth began emerging through hospital archives and forgotten documents. Mira discovered a second letter hidden beneath the music box's damaged lining, written in feminine handwriting that seemed to span decades. When you hear this song complete, find the ring. The ring and you are one melody. A faded logo appeared on the aged paper. Three interlocking circles that matched the original Vale Group symbol from the founder's era. Adrian's grandmother had established the company with a vision that transcended business. She'd created the Trinity ring and music box as symbols for the keeper of the house, someone chosen not by bloodline, but by the size of their heart. The investigation revealed something extraordinary. Hospital records from 20 years earlier showed that Mira at age 5 had been brought to a community center where Adrian's grandmother volunteered. The elderly woman had intended to sponsor Mira's adoption, but bureaucratic complications caused the little girl to disappear into the foster system. For her wasn't just an inscription about Adrian's late wife. It was the foundation's sacred promise for the mother, the one who would choose home over spotlight. But the most shocking revelation came from Ivy herself. The 6-year-old had been planning this reunion for months, secretly recording videos with her child's camera of Mira's countless small kindnesses, covering patients during rain-switching shifts for colleagues with sick children, buying milk for families using her own tip money. Ivy had edited these moments into a compilation called For Her, proof that Mira had been mothering everyone around her long before they'd ever met. Adrian realized his role wasn't to select a mother for Ivy using his wealth, but to return the melody to its rightful guardian. The Motherline Foundation had been criticized as corporate publicity, but now it had found its true keeper through an ancient promise that valued character over connections. Kessler and other shareholders had expected the successor to be another polished CEO, not a night shift nurse who measured success in patient comfort rather than profit margins. The Trinity ring had guided them all exactly where they needed to be. Adrian understood that his job was returning the song to someone who'd been carrying its rhythm her entire life. Archive files revealed that the music box and Trinity ring had never been simple jewelry. They were ceremonial pieces created for Vale Foundation's sacred trust, a position given not to family members but to someone with a heart large enough to build homes for lost children. The letter hidden in Mira's music box was written by Adrian's grandmother, the Foundation's original creator. She'd met 5-year-old Mira at a community center decades ago and had planned to make her the official sponsor, but bureaucratic obstacles caused the child to vanish into foster care. For her wasn't just an inscription about Adrian's late wife. It was the Foundation's ancient motto for the mother, the one who would choose shelter over spotlight. The Trinity ring represented 3 commitments: to protect, to nurture, and to sacrifice for something greater than oneself. Ivy had been the puppet master all along. The little girl had deliberately placed the ring into Mira's medical supplies that rainy night after watching the nurse secure her stethoscope with a loose rubber band. Ivy had been studying Mira for weeks through crack-open doors, following the sound of her music box down hospital corridors. Adrian hadn't planned to purchase Mira's affection. He'd been guided by Ivy's whispered instructions. The phrase, "I need a mother for her," had originated from Ivy herself, with Adrian simply repeating her words. Using her child's camera, Ivy had secretly documented hundreds of Mira's small acts of kindness, sharing blankets, comforting frightened patients, staying overtime without pay to sit with lonely elderly visitors. She'd compiled these moments into a video titled For Her. The 6-year-old possessed an intelligence that adults had consistently underestimated. Motherline had been criticized as corporate publicity, but it was actually fulfilling an ancient promise, finding the sacred keeper who would value humanity over hierarchy. Kessler and other board members had expected the successor to be another polished executive, not a night shift nurse who measured success in patient comfort rather than profit margins. Adrian's grandmother had designed the system to identify someone who would choose children's well-being over personal advancement, exactly what Mira demonstrated every single day. The Foundation's purpose crystallized. Mira hadn't been chosen because of bloodline or romantic connection, but because her daily choices proved she was already living the foundation's values. Kessler's shock was profound. He'd spent years maneuvering for influence only to discover that true power belonged to someone who'd never sought it. Adrian finally understood his role, not as a CEO selecting employees, but as a guardian returning sacred symbols to their rightful keeper. The music box and ring weren't meant to buy affection or create obligations. They were recognition tools identifying someone who'd been building homes for lost souls her entire career. Ivy's master plan had succeeded perfectly. The child had identified what adults missed, that the best mothers weren't chosen by interviews or contracts, but revealed through countless moments of choosing others' needs above their own convenience. The house song had been calling its family together for years. It just took a 6-year-old's wisdom to make the adults listen. The second town hall transformed Vale Mercy Hospital forever. Adrian projected Ivy's compilation video, For Her, across multiple screens. A montage of tiny moments that revealed the extraordinary within the ordinary. Mira covering sleeping patients with her own jacket, staying late to read bedtime stories, using her meal money to buy comfort items for anxious families. Motherline isn't built with spreadsheets, Adrian announced to the packed auditorium. It's built with hands that choose to help. The viral explosion was instantaneous. NAR, For Her, and House Song dominated social media as healthcare workers worldwide shared their own stories of invisible dedication. Night shift nurses posted videos of themselves humming to patients. Single mothers documented their struggles and small victories. Policy changes rippled through the medical industry. Vale Group established the Night House program, free family accommodations near hospitals for long-term patients. The House Song Scholarship provided full tuition for nursing students from underserved communities. Budget reallocations spoke louder than press releases. Half the marketing department was restructured, their funds redirected to direct patient care initiatives. The cultural shift within Vale Mercy was immediate and profound. Department heads began recognizing staff for patient advocacy rather than just efficiency metrics. The pediatric wing created Ivy's Corner, a quiet space where children could listen to music and families could find moments of peace. The head chef launched community table dinners, ensuring no night shift worker ate alone during their breaks. But Mira remained exactly who she'd always been. She continued her night shifts for weeks, refusing special treatment or accelerated promotions. Each evening, she sat with Ivy, teaching the child to create melodies with the restored music box. Their ritual became hospital legend. The young CEO's daughter and the night nurse creating music together, while the rest of the world rushed past their quiet corner. The symbolic image that captured everything, the Trinity ring, resting permanently in the music box groove, both pieces resonating together each time the lid opened. Media attention focused not on romance or wealth disparity, but on the revolutionary idea that institutional change could begin with recognizing the people who'd been making a difference all along. Medical schools began incorporating the Vale approach into their curricula, teaching future healthcare providers to identify and support the natural caregivers within their teams. Ivy's video compilation was studied in business schools as a masterclass in authentic leadership recognition. How a child's perspective had revealed what adults' assumptions had hidden. The Trinity ring and music box weren't symbols of acquisition or transaction. They represented the radical act of seeing clearly without prejudice or preconception. The house song had always been playing. It just took the right ears to hear its full melody. 6 months later, Adrian stood before the board of directors with a decision that surprised everyone. "I don't need a CEO who talks about compassion," he said quietly. "I need a guardian who lives it every day." He signed transfer papers that moved 51% of Vale Foundation's control to Motherline Trust for Her, with Mira and Ivy as co-trustees. The penthouse remained empty. Instead, Mira chose a modest house near the children's park, its backyard perfect for wind chimes that would carry the house song through every season. Mira's foster mother moved in next door, her heart condition stabilized through Vale Mercy's advanced treatment program. For the first time in years, the woman who'd raised Mira could rest without worrying about medical bills. The wow twist beyond expectation. The night of the Night House program launch, hundreds gathered in the hospital's main auditorium. On stage sat the music box and Trinity ring, symbols that had guided them all home. Ivy approached the podium carrying an envelope she'd hidden for months. The original letter from Vale Foundation's founder to her future keeper. And inside the handwriting was elegant and certain. If you're reading this, I trust you chose a child's well-being before choosing a seat of power. Adrian smiled, stepping back from the spotlight to invite Mira forward. But Mira's response defied every expectation. She opened the music box, lifted out the Trinity ring, and instead of placing it on her own finger, she knelt before Ivy. Gently, she slipped the ring onto a chain around the 6-year-old's neck, like a pendant carrying all their promises. The house doesn't belong to adults, Mira said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent auditorium. The house belongs to children's hearts. You keep the rhythm, Ivy. The audience sat stunned as understanding dawned. Mira had rejected every traditional symbol of winning. The CEO's affection, the foundation leadership, the fairy tale elevation from poverty to privilege. Instead, she'd placed the power exactly where it belonged, with the child who'd been wise enough to choose love over loneliness. Adrian wiped away tears, walking down from the stage to sit in the audience like any other father. The music box melody filled the room as people throughout the auditorium began reaching for each other's hands. Respect is a basic human right. Home isn't something you buy. It's something you build through how you treat each other. Have you ever witnessed a small act that restored your faith in human kindness? Share your story in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to HL Stories for more healing narratives that remind us what truly matters.